Yeah, that's a very peaceful and
Yom
beautiful atmosphere. Then,
Yes, it is. It is. And how do you do, Fernando? Good morning. Good morning.
Kippur.
Eniola,
Good,
Felipe, how do you do today?
good morning, Iti. I'm happy to be here and listening to you, to Jeff, Eniola, Felipe. And it is good to receive this news from you, Iti. Yom Kippur is, we can read this Yom Kip, uh, the day that is like Purim, like
Yes,
Kippur, right? So
yes,
it can be a happy day where we cannot see the good and the evil, only everything is perfect, let's say, right?
yes, yes,
And so it is good to listen that everything is calm as
yes,
well.
yes.
yeah,
Thank you, Fernando. Eniola, good morning. How do you do?
Greetings, Ati and friends. Anatova. Well, I don't know if I don't know how you greet for Yom Kippur, but I'm happy to be here. I am well. It is a beautiful day, and I'm happy to join you, friends.
Thank you, Eniola. And good morning, Felipe. How do you do today? I hope you can speak, Felipe. Maybe later. Just to answer what Fernando gave us as a starting point. Yes, Yom Kippur is like Pur. Ki, ke, basically pe is like. I'm sorry, ke, kaf is like or as, and Purim, Purim is a lottery. So it's like a lottery, and there is no good or bad. Everything just exists. This is in a way beyond space and time. Yes, Jeff, what would you like to say?
um, no, I would just like to listen here for a couple of minutes and see what comes forward from your heart. Appreciate being here and good to hear you. I do want to thank you for the putting out the poem, Children of the Kashmir Children. Enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
E.T.,
Yes, yes, Fernando.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, sure.
I was listening also to your podcast about Isaac, and it was beautiful podcast. And I was thinking about the Akedah,
Mhm.
and the sum of Akedah, if I remember well, is 179.
Yes, yes,
It is right.
yes,
And and I was remembering that Isaac is 180, right?
true.
So if we sum both, we have 359.
True.
And this is an interesting number because following the standpoint of your podcast, we can think about the perspective of the whole, that is 360, right?
Yes.
The the idea of to be complete, right? If we add the one, that is the oneness.
Mhm.
And and I can remember also that Plato speaks that the first man was round, you know, this idea that Adam Kadmon uh, englobes everything. He is round and 360 degrees. So this Akedah that takes us to the standpoint of infinity. Isaac plus Akedah gives 359 plus the 1 is 360. But if we not add the 1, we subtract 1, we have 368 and 358, that is Messiah 358. So I don't know it. I look at these numbers and I was just thinking it struck me when I was listening to your podcast.
Yes, thank you. 360 is one complete cycle or completeness. 359 is also the value of Satan or Diablo. This is also a way to look at it if we don't include the one or the oneness. And 358 is the Messiah, the one who converses. Yes, the positive pole of 358 is Messiah or Mashiach, depends. But the negative pole is the snake, the serpent, the one that separates. So we can see that if we want to map once, yes, I remember there was one of our friends that he was trying to map. He was trying to portray a mathematical field like we have sometimes in language. So he was trying to portray a mathematical map of values. So we can see, and also Weinreb speaks about it, so we can see around the completion 360, we have 359, which is also the value of Akedah, the binding in Isaac together, which means he shall laugh after he goes out or moves from space and time. Next to it, the 358, the Messiah, or the one who converses, Messiah. This is the positive pole of 358. So it depends. Rodrigo once tried to map. I remember he sent me, when we were still on Slack, he just sent me like a table of numbers, and he asked me to, how do you say, to fill in. He just created a tables of numbers and names of value of words in Hebrew that fit the field, the mathematical field, and so there is a way, there is a way to work with it, like to pull like diagrams and fields like, how do you say, Google spreadsheets, and to map those words and concepts mathematically. But the more we think about it, or the more we live in it, it is like a tree in us that around 360 we have 359, we have 358, and those are the fields, the completion, Isaac and the binding, or Diablo if we excluded the one who can do such a thing. Because when we read the book of Jesher, the part that speaks about the binding of Isaac, who comes and tell the mother Sarah about the binding, because she was not there? The Diablo, the Satan, so to speak. And from this kind of message, she drifts and moves to the next life, so to speak. But you see how the mathematic is embedded in the story. Similar effect or mathematical field we find next to the number 260. 260 is value of 10 times the tetragrammaton, or kerem, vineyard, yes, or a plow field, nir, or a paper, niyar, and 255 5 numbers beneath, we find Nahal, the river. And 256, one above, Nur, which is a fire. And then we have 257 and 258. Those numbers, 258, we have the throat, and we have Reuben, or 3 times the names of Elohim. This is how Luria maps all of those fields as well. So, and we learn to map those fields, like 318 is Siach, conversation. 317, one number before, this is Yabasha, dry land, a ground on which can we walk on, something stable. And we find that, how do you say, good ground to walk on is not just a path in the field, is a conversation. We can build worlds by conversing, and we can walk through those conversations. So it is like we meet in Genesis 1. Vaikra Elohim layabasha eretz, and to the dry land he called eretz, or will. And this is not a, let's say, a chapter about geography, because Yabasha, dry land, is 317, and one number after, 318, this is Siach. And when God says, and God called to the dry land Eretz, a will, we immediately include the one in it, and we find a conversation. So his will is embedded in a conversation. In language, we have a semantic field. But if we, it depends on how we think, but just to, let's say, to not to show, but to demonstrate how does it work. We have a new friend here that I did not see it speaking, but he wrote few midrashim, and I shall be happy to hear his voice. If you would like to open your mic, I don't know how your name is or your nickname is, but we shall be happy to hear your voice. Yes, if you would like to speak, if you would like to open your mic for a conversation, we shall be happy. Maybe you would like to have more time inside, and then you would like to speak later. Yes. Jeff, Fernando, Eniola, Felipe, new friend. If you would like to say something, this is the time. Just one word about the binding of Isaac. In the binding of Isaac, something interesting is happening, or the moment then in which Abraham lifts his hand with the knife, is to say to Abraham, you are not the father, and Isaac is not your son. If we now attend a conversation, we go to a school, elementary school, even junior high school, when they have parents' assembly, and we shall tell or offer to parents such a concept. You are not the father, and this one is not your son. But he will tell you, I take him to school every day, I buy him bicycles, I bought him helmet, I make sure that he'll have good conversation or good education, and I buy him good dressing in the winter and equipment for the summer. And we shall still say, please note, you are not the father, and he is not your son. If you will go and tell this to your this kind of sentence on you are not the mother, and this is, people will not like it. But this is the truth.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, Jeff.
I was just gonna say you remind me of what Jesus said at some point. You know, the disciples told him, "Hey, your mother and your brothers are outside the door," and he said something about they're not my mothers and my brothers, or my mother and my brothers in a biological sense, yeah. But he took it like you're doing to different a different understanding or different point. Saying that those that do the will of my Father, these are my mother and brother, is what he told the disciples. Uh, Later on, I mean, he would admit, you know, John, take care of my mother at the cross when Mary was standing there. Uh, but you do remind me of that instance where he was giving this abstract lesson and saying, "Those that do the will of the Father, my by Father he meant that's my Father. You know, God is my Father, and those that do His will, that that's who I am really relating to." Does that make sense, Eddie?
Yes, it does. But
Yeah.
we cannot speak truth to people. If we shall say such a thing among parents. But I carried this child 9 months, and I had a very great pain in the day that I delivered this son. And you tell me that I'm not his mother, and this is not my son. Or the father say the same thing.
Yeah, I
It is
mean,
hard.
when
It
you
is hard.
speak,
It is hard for people mind to accept this fact.
yeah, I mean, when you have a spiritual teacher speaking, um, people generally aren't following abstract ideas or thoughts for the most. They're still their focus is still on the the things that they see in front of them. Not necessarily the spiritual teaching that's coming out. But after a while, there are people that get it. They understand what parables are, and they understand. We're not talking literally about everything. I'm teaching spiritual things, and yeah, it does. People do take offense when they, at first, a lot of times, especially people that are always only thinking materially about the world and their mission and goal. It was offensive when Jesus said, you got to eat my body and you got to drink my blood. A lot of people left him. They said that's a hard teaching, and understand what kind of a abstract message he was given about that. You know, more people do now. Over a lot more people understand that, and then there's still people that don't. But
Thank you, Jeff. I just wanted to
yeah,
ask you a question about Isaac binding. And just, let's say, raise a question. Why did Sarah pass, so to speak, away in this moment? What does Sarah symbolize, and why did she have to move out from the picture? Sefer Yashar gives us, the book of Jeshar gives us one turn or one perspective to this triangle.
I remember you saying it was a heart attack, but correct? Um, I know, Fernando, do you remember why she had to pass away? I don't hear Fernando.
Maybe he cannot speak. If, let's think abstract about this triangle, father, son, and mother. If the father, Av, is the cause and the son is the effect, once there is a disconnection or cut between the cause and the effect, what is the consequence of this equation? If there is no cause and effect, because what is cause? Previous in time.
Well, the father's the cause, and then you have
The father is the
the effect.
cause. Yes, can you please speak? Because I barely hear you, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Um, let me see here. I just saying that, yeah, in the standard way of looking at it, the father's the cause, the son is the effect. Um, but I suppose with the death of Sarah, then there, the son is no longer the effect, not his son.
Yes. When Abraham lifts his knife, there is no cause and effect. Cause and effect we can observe only when there's time. This is why
Yeah.
Sarah is removed from the picture. Because this is time.
Yeah. So there's no time anymore.
Yes.
Amazing, Andy. Amazing.
We can look at...
And this is
Yes, Fernando, please speak.
no. I was just wondering, Andy, if this is why this passage is read in this time
Yes,
of the year.
yes. Because there
Well,
is...
yeah, that would connect to what you were saying earlier about you don't look at it as good or bad. Outside of time and space, it's really the effect of, or the condition, let's use that word, it's the condition of the tree of life. Because you see everything all at once, as Feinreb illustrates it. You see the beginning of the fruit, the maturing of it, the harvest, the complete fruit from blossom to fruit all at once, because it's not a time thing. It's a condition kind of. So if you're talking about Yom Kippur as no good or evil, everything is all at once, You see it, you see the whole picture. See how everything works together for the good. Everything actually works together for one purpose.
Yeah. 365. Thank you, Jeff. Yes?
Yeah, you're welcome.
You just reminded me of the life of Hanoch, the life of Enoch, they say in English, and that Enoch was walking with God, and the life that he had is 365, like a solar year concept. Everything becomes one. This is why people could not see that he is among them anymore, because about Hanoch it is written that he did not die. He did not
Right.
die. Yes. He just transformed.
Yep. Yeah, I think towards the end of the story about him there, he was only making an appearance once a year too. It was like he'd appear every third day, and then pretty soon once a month, and then if I remember right, and then finally just like once a year. But then, as you say, Eddie, now you can't see him. He didn't die, but he gets 365 years is what he gets as a marking in the Bible for his time.
Eti,
Yes,
and
Fernando.
following this idea, I was just thinking that it is, I don't know how to stitch all the ideas, but Hanoch was this teacher, right? He was the one who could, um, let's say, bring the worlds together. This is his quality, I think. And today is the day that is in the system of Luria. I think that today is the day that he is the Malchut of Asya. Maybe it is like the end of the tree of life, like the manifested. This is why we need to pull back, not going to the force of development, but we need to restrain a little bit. And Hanoch is the one who bound the Malchut to the tree of life. I think the one who has this quality, but I do not know how to stitch these ideas. This is the time to bound the kingdom to the king, like this. I don't know it. Just
Yes.
came this insight.
This
but
is it. Yes, this is it. This is it. There are, in a lunar year, 355 days. 355 is the value of a thought, machshava. When we deduct from 355 the 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, that we call it a thin throat of the year, because like in a regular birth comes the head, Rosh, and then look at the baby, comes the head, and then comes the throat, and then comes the body. So Rosh Hashanah is the head, then we have like those 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. This is a thin throat, or people called it or name it like days of judgment. I would not call it judgment. It's like this is what happens in nature. Usually this is happening around the equinox, when the light hours are equal to the light of darkness, so everything is balanced. And then from Yom Kippur until the next coming Rosh Hashanah, we have 345 days, like the value of Moshe or Hashem. Please pay attention, when 355 is not just the value of the word machshava, thought, but also the value of Pharaoh, Paro. When the thought, the process of thought is not embedded in actions or deed, there is some kind of disturbance of the self. What is the self? the one that we get when we are being born here. We get a name, we get a date of birth, a location, then education, or what we call later the CV, our CV. Also, this is the sense of self, of who we are when we walk in this life. And the sense of selfing, that we have name, address, and so all of those things, is a false image of ourselves. It's like a shell. The body is like a container. That body, the soul is not really embedded so much in the body, but the soul is like taking a ride to have this voyage on earth. So there's a need for a nest, and our body in a way is just giving it a nest. But don't think that our bodies is who we are. And when this takes over, that the self or the body is who we are, or my work or my job, all of those things is who I am or who we are, it's create a field of disturbance. Paro, Pharaoh, Hafra'a, disturbance. And I find it interestingly that there is a beautiful relation between this kind of disturbance that we have. All of us have this because we get a name, we get an ID in hospital. A few days after the birth, at the birth, we get inoculation, whatever is needed. This is who we are, this is where we live, this is school, and so on. But this is let's say, it's just a wrapping. It's not the soul. It's not what lives in us and life go through us all the time. So, and sometimes we interpret as what is happening to us is who we are. So what is happening us through the day when we meet other reflections is not who we are. And this is what is so special about those days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's like we say fiasco, like a thin neck of the year. Why it is thin neck? And they always say in Louis' writing that Pharaoh used to sit in the nape, the last point of the back head, and to suck all the abundance. Sits there behind. We have a throat behind. There's a nape, and sit and sucks the whole liveliness that the soul gives us. Pharaoh is the sense of self in us. And it is interesting because in those days, this sense of selfing is being tuned down, if we want to look at it like this. Because
What were you? Excuse me.
Yes, Jeff.
What were you going to say about a relationship between the disturbance and
Between
something?
what?
You mentioned that there's a disturbance
Yes.
that's there that everybody carries, and you were going to say something about it's interesting that there's a relationship between the disturbance and something else. I didn't know if you were going to talk about nature or what.
Disturbance is that we tend to believe that what we do is who we are, the mechanical activity or our job. This is the definition of who we are, and from this we cut a very narrow version of divinity, of life, and then from this very narrow perspective we cut a weird conclusion of who we are. And first, because we believe that this is who we are, this name, the details on paper, this is who we are. And then we fight with it. This is a disturbance. So if we don't accept those conditions, like conditions on paper of name, date of birth, all of those things, we don't accept it. Okay, it's written there, but does it, how you say,
Yeah, it doesn't have to define who you are.
yes, if a person needs to go for interview, so he writes things on a paper to
Yeah,
deliver
and
some kind of a sense of something. But the thing is that we believe this, and we carry this disturbance, and from this we cut wrong relations to life.
mm-hmm.
Just as a human, each and every one of us, all of us, trees and bees and flowers and birds and whales, just an aspect of the divinity come together here, and this is it. But the disturbance comes from that a person is identified with his name, and then with his address, and then with his neighborhood, and then with his or her appearance in the mirror. This is disturbed, and completely disturbed. It doesn't mean that we should not be, how do you say, clean and prepared and spirit in the middle. It doesn't speak about this kind of hygienic life or order or sense of service. But let's say for a while person works as a clerk. Let's say I invent something, because today in our time almost everything is different. So let's take imaginary scenario. Person goes to office from 8 to 5, from 9 to 5. If he will define himself only by this activity, he is gone. He is gone, or she. So it will be a mistake to define ourselves according to our activity, or the way we dress, or whom we associate. It is because the thought is always trying to put like borders and to tag. If you write an email to this person, so what is the relation, and if you dress certain kind of dressing, but it's just spirit hovering few years on earth, and then we have to be careful not to listen to this selfing, because the selfing, this is interesting. We say in English selfing, in Hebrew not true or false. There is a word in Hebrew called siluf. Siluf. Please pay attention how close it is. Siluf, not to tell the truth, and selfing. There's all the time a narrator in the head that tells you, Sat. We have to pay attention not to listen to it. Because this selfing always tries to box us in. And then we complain that we don't have any freedom, or we cannot do what we wish for.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems that people, and we all have these areas, try to identify yourself with something that is just a temporary existing deal, whether people buy a name brand shoe,
Mm-hmm.
and they identify with that brand of shoe, then they always want to buy that, and they always want to promote that brand. This is what basically marketing and all that about. Like, get people to identify with your brand, get them to identify with your team, that I'm this particular kind of a fan of this particular team from this particular area. And so, people chase after, what am I going to identify with? What country am I going to identify? People actually chase for that too. And, but what are we not identifying with? That which we really are, which is we are spiritual beings. And none of this sticks. None of this stuff is who you really are. So our purpose really isn't to go around and show off about stuff. It's really to express the love of God, to let His love continue to touch lives as long as we're here. And we can get too caught up. I see the collections of different things that people have too, where they spend their whole life amassing huge collections. Like we ended up going to a museum earlier this summer because we were up north enjoying some vacation, and we popped into a train museum, and there's all these train tracks and collections of every kind and size of train, model trains, electric trains, and so on. And there's some old guys in there that tell you all about what they've done, and basically they're growing up boys fulfilling their fantasy of being able to spend all this time now doing what they never could, because they've got the resources and the smarts on how to recreate little villages and so on. And anyhow, but what impresses me is like how people will amass like an entire collection, and then they'll donate it to a museum, or they're basically, when they die, the relatives donate it to a museum because they don't know what to do with it. They don't have the space. They don't have the interest. But I just think about, the time and all that went into the collection, and that was their whole life in some cases of what they did. I don't know if that's kind of what you're getting at, Eddie, some of that idea there.
It is part of it, of course, not to attach to material stuff, not collections, what people call collect dolls and plates and God knows what they collect.
Yeah.
But not to have attachment, not to those physical objects and not to people. So also people develop attachment for other people. This is also, or to who they were yesterday, or to who they were when they were, who knows, several years ago, and they don't, this one, to leave behind and to be who or she is right now. So people are struggling with their past, with details, unrelevant details also. Yet had no relevancy to this kind of moment that we are living in.
Uh-huh.
Because I would like to review one word in Hebrew, which is called ma'aseh. Ma'aseh is an act from asiyah. Ma'aseh is written with 4 letters. Mem, Ayin, Shin, He. In those 4 letters, we have 3 letters, of which we can compose the word hour, sha'ah. Shin, Ayin, He is sha'ah, an hour, a segment of time. When we act, We can only act in a frame of time. And this is kind of an interesting, I don't want to say take on life, but there are things, there are theories, there are ideas, but when we do something, all of us is doing this kind of thing, and we can focus and do one thing, and in a way it relieves us of, so to speak, of the selfing. This is why I would not call it, I don't want to say these wrong words, in certain traditions there is, how do you say, they emphasize the doing, or to embed a deed in a time frame. It helps, or service. Otherwise, people are drifting. People can drift in themselves for decades.
Mm-hmm.
In order that such a thing will not happen, this is also what we do. Not just learning those conversations now, even without a whiteboard. We are, these conversations, all of us being here, to ensure, in a way, we don't do this to ensure that we shall not drift, but it's where is Jeff now? Or the Jeff, the one who is under the name of Jeff. This is also interesting.
Yeah.
Where is Fernando? Where is Eniola? Where is Felipe? Where is the anonymous friend here? Where is Venus? Abigail here on YouTube. They're coming under the name. All of us are appearing under certain names or nicknames.
Mm-hmm.
And those spirits are speaking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is when people quit life or quit awakening, and then they have this whole scenarios in the head, all kinds of thoughts, but they never reach another person. This is so sad, because the whole train called life is disappearing because a person cannot go out of himself. And this is interesting because, again, we return to the binding of Isaac. This is to ensure that will not happen. So, because what comes from cause and effect? Cause was previous, effect was afterwards. So the cause is the prime. So it gives us a sense of an ancient king. First was the cause, and then comes the effect, so to speak, the slave or the worker. It says, no, there isn't such a concept of cause and effect. And all of us are free. Because also this is what happens in families very often, all over the place, when there's the generations of the parents and the children. From being children, they are being toddlers or babies, so those people are in charge to take care of them, that they will live through the winters, through the summer, to give them good education and food. But along through the course of time comes also expectation. This child that I was taking care of all of my life suddenly wants to go to his life. How dare you? You suppose now to serve me. I gave you my beautiful years, please return. So we have here a negotiation between two sides. And this, the binding of Isaac, also comes to, how do you say, not to even resume such a situation. Because there is no father and there is no son, there is no cause and there's no effect and there's no time. Because what happens is when people get upset, they don't let the children go to their life. The children has to marry other people that the parents approve. No matter even those children are adult or being abused with their new families under the regime of the old, ancient, crazy generation. This is so dangerous, so dangerous.
Hmm. Yeah. With the effect, I suppose that we're talking about your expectations. So to bind those expectations, don't let them bind you. You bind Isaac so that you're not bound in a sense. And you bind, so there's the expectations that people have on things, and if you don't put your expectations on what should happen, what you think should happen, how you think life should go, you bind that, then you're not bound by disappointment or when things go differently than how you were imagining they should go. You can be free because you have peace. You're like, I put it out there. I put some teaching out there, whatever. I put some music out there, I put poetry into the world from inspiration, and now people don't have to like it. You may hope they like it. You may hope they listen to it, but they don't have to do one thing. I mean, if you bind the expectation, like it's there, and it will do what God is happy for it to do. He's happy for it to fall off a cliff, and it doesn't get heard by anybody, then so be it. But at least the inspiration came, and you acted on the inspiration that came. And yeah, because we really don't, like you say, Eddie, we have like this hour of time that we see. We have this moment that we're participating in. From that moment, we can't see the rest. We don't know how many people are going to be blessed. We don't know how long that creation that we put out there is going to endure. I think probably the sages that get their things read thousands of years later couldn't have known the moment they sat down and wrote something that it would endure that long. And then on the other hand, somebody might have had this puffed up view of themselves and say that people are going to remember me forever, and nobody's heard of them. 10 years later, nobody knows who that was. So I kind of get that sort of a flavor from what you're saying, Eddie. To bind expectation, or you'll be bound by that thing, or could be.
Thank you, Jeff. Venus is
Yeah,
reading.
I mean,
Yes?
I was just going to say, and if you got something deeper to say about it than that, I'm listening.
Thank you. Venus was just,
What does
I would like, yes, Jeff?
What does Venus say?
she is saying, love the new Moabits release. This is what Felipe released. Yes, a few days ago, a new song. So Venus says she likes it a lot, and thank you so much. Venus also,
Yeah.
yes, and Venus also found that Yalda or Yalda is a word in Persian, which is a name of the winter festival. So this is basically the former or the ancient way the local people in Central Asia used to celebrate winter. Now we celebrate winter in the North Hemisphere as Christmas. And thank you, Venus, for this revelation. Thank you so much. Weinreb also say, very beautiful. He has a beautiful article that I read that before we celebrate the holidays, human community, the holidays were celebrated. Nature also celebrates, and we just participating in all of this. This is a quite interesting article of his. I'll try to find it in English and bring it to us all. Yes, because we have basically a scope of 2,000 years, or sometimes maybe more, 3,000 years from the Hebrew, and then Christianity also, and Greek philosophy. But let's say, just to give us perspective of life, how humanity lived life, next to us, few kilometers, there's a Mount Carmel Mountain, and in the Carmel Mountain, that they found out that 200,000 years before our time, people used to bury their dead in the Carmel Mountain in caves. So the relation of humans to each other is manifested through the burial, let's say, ceremony, or even this tradition to bury the bones of people. 200,000 years before our time. Why do I give this kind of number? Because most of people look in the last 2,000 years, let's say, from Jesus' time and until our time, and this is the only corridor or the arc in which people look into life. And this is not even this, even they cut more into it and take just few spots, and they make out of those spots politics, identity, and so. And this is just I don't know, just a spot. It's not all of it. And there is so much to say about it. And I would like us to go, if I will find this article of Weinreb about the holidays, this is a quite interesting epos. Also he writes about Sukkot, the tabernacle, and the 8th day of Sukkot. This is the meal of the ends of times. This is quite interesting because the whale song also deals with it in his way. This new song that Felipe released. And yes, Jeff?
It's interesting. You're tying in nature with the festivals, the holidays, and
Yes.
and with the whale song and so on, it's tying in nature to the celebration, right? And like that, nature is more of what was followed, I think, is what you're saying by the ancient peoples. They were more perhaps in touch with nature. That was the inspiration for the celebrations, right? Like,
yes, look at the fashion, like autumn fashion. What kind of color? If you look at the, how do you say, vitrina, how do you say in the shops, what color? Now, most of the commerce is on the internet, but if you look at autumn fashion, what kind of color? You have orange, yellow, brown, all kinds of reds.
Right.
This is the what if you look outside, this is what happens to the trees,
Right.
to the leaves, to the ground. Sometimes we have ashes, it's burned from the summer, so we have gray or smoky colors in the morning at dawn, you know.
Yeah,
the-
people are going to wear plaid shirts and things like this now. Sure.
So this is what we do.
And I heard a mortician, he told me once that he noticed that people pass away when the leaves fall on the tree in the fall, and they also pass away when the leaves first pop in the spring. I mean, not everybody, but he's like, there's an uptick
Mhm.
from his experience. And when he told me that, I began to notice it. So, yeah, we are outcroppings of nature, human beings. But for some reason, our consciousness is disconnected a lot from it, and that's unfortunate. Because probably then I thought maybe earlier you were going to say that the disturbance that we have with us for taking our identity in the wrong thing shows up in nature, that nature has disturbances
This
that
is
go
when,
along with it.
yes, this is interesting, Jeff, because when people pull the blanket to their side so much, this is how nature responds.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we're still trying to correct nature from our own perspective, make it obey, like almost like punish nature for having a symptom, and I see this with when there's a lot of taking of drugs and stuff, it punishes the human body for having symptoms that are telling you, look, you're out of balance. You need to change your actions. Your thoughts need changing to get in balance, have more peace in your life, in your thoughts, trust the Lord, love people, do an act of kindness. Otherwise, there's kind of the soul is chafed in there, and it shows up in your body. It hits you with cancer, and it leaves the world. And what do we do? Pound on it, make the symptoms go away with drugs or something, some substance to say, no, you're wrong. You're telling me the wrong thing. You shouldn't be reacting this way. Instead of listening and saying, oh, I need to take more time to meditate and listen to the messages that are coming my way from inside. What is being said? Slow down, calm down. Different things.
Thank you, Jeff.
And
Thank you.
yeah, it's just we beat on nature. So, all right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to seal this conversation. And Fernando, Eniola, Felipe, friends, would you like to say something before we sum up this session?
Just fine, E.T. Just fine.
Thank you. Eniola, would you like to say something?
Oh, Etty, I was just reflecting on the idea that Shabtai, Saturn, and rest, and the season of the autumnal equinox is associated with sign of Libra, where Saturn has its exaltation or its highest function. Saturn being the planet that represents physical death or form identity. When you earlier spoke of Maaseh, to act, it reminded me of Aseh, a positive command, and the third commandment, that you shall not take the name of Adonai in vain, and the revelation to Moshe, I am that I am. We say, I am Jeff, I am Etty, I am Eniola. We all have the same first name, I am, but we always qualify it. We don't leave it unassigned, as maybe the commandment is suggesting. I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Felipe, would you like to say something?
Shalom, Etienne friends.
Hello.
I happy to be here. I couldn't speak earlier, but I was really happy to listen to you. And I would like to say a lot of things, but I know we are in our time. I just wanted to thank you all. It was a lot of nice things. I just wanted to say, Eti, today I was reading about Weinreb in speaking about the word pur, and he speaks about this coincidence in the context of Esther's book. And it's quite beautiful if you have the time. I will share what I was reading. It's related with everything we said today. And so just thank you and have all a nice week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Felipe. Thank you so much. And new friend, would you like to say something? Here? There's an option. If you wish to open your microphone, this is an option. Also Venus and Abigail. I would like to wish you a very beautiful year. And Niola asked before, what is the blessing that people usually say in Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, is Gmar Chatima Tova. They say happy and good seal, meaning for life, signature for life. Happy, good signature for life. This is what people wish to each other. And with this blessing, I would like to thank you and to wish to meet you again on Thursday. Toda and Shana Tova. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, Shana Tova, and
Shalom,
friends.
shalom.